There's a ton of people out here telling you what to do, what not to do. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to creating a new life, especially a life that involves moving abroad, you are, if you want to successfully and sustainably get there and stop procrastinating on living your dreams, a large part of that means creating some new habits. Hi, I'm Coach Tish. If we've never met and you're new to my channel, I moved to Mexico after I was laid off at the age of 36. From being laid off to then getting a remote job as a coach, no less, my coaching career has literally allowed me to travel the world. So if you're interested in living an imposter-free life, that means releasing perfectionism, kicking the superwoman to the curb, building or growing your coaching career, or even interested in expat life, hit the bell below and subscribe to the channel. That's what I'll be talking about. So I was watching a video by one of my favorite YouTubers, Picky Girl Travels the World, and she was talking about all of the things not to do in order to become an expat. And so as I was listening to what she was saying, I couldn't help but to think about all of the habits and the things that I personally had put into place. And so today I just want to share with you 4 habits that you can begin doing, right? That will support you in moving forward. A lot of times when we have big dreams and big wishes, right? When we're the first in our family to do something, we don't have a whole lot of support. Okay, that is what it is. When I was wanting to move abroad, there was no one else talking about it. At least nobody in my circles. No one that I knew personally, no one I could reach out and touch, right? And so what I realized was, for a large part of my journey, I had to keep it to myself. Not because people were saying negative things to me, but really because this was a dream of mine, right? My first time going abroad, I went to Nigeria with my college roommate. That was the first time I had a passport. I think I was 28. And the first time I went and got a passport, my first time traveling overseas. And when I came back, I knew for a fact that this was the life I was supposed to live. I was supposed to have a driver. I was supposed to have someone cooking my food. I was supposed to have someone helping me clean the house, right? Like, I created this vision in my life that, oh, this is the life that I'm supposed to have. And so from that, no one in my life at the time had that kind of life, right? So I had this dream and this vision of the kind of life that I was destined to have, but I didn't have anybody around me who could relate. And so the first habit that you want to create when it comes to especially achieving your big dreams, right? Doing something you've never done before, never seen before, no one around you has ever seen before, is to start talking about it, but talk about it to yourself. Okay. And when I say talk about it to yourself, what I'm really talking about is getting clear and being honest about how you feel. What kind of feelings are showing up? I know in our community, especially, I see this now as I'm working more with people on their mental health. For the most part, in our community, we don't acknowledge our feelings. We try to throw them in the closet, sweep them under the bed, under the rug, right? Pretend they don't exist. But our feelings are messages. And if we don't take the time to acknowledge and identify what those messages are, we tend to ignore some really important things. And so when I say start talking about it to yourself, right? Start talking about your dreams to yourself. I literally mean talk to yourself in your car, in your bathroom, in the shower, right? When you're on your way to places, talk through the feelings that you're having. Acknowledge your feelings, validate your feelings, right? Tell yourself why it makes sense that you would feel the way you feel. We don't get a lot of that when we are trailblazing. And so if we don't give it to ourselves, if we don't build up the habit of giving that validation to ourselves, 9 times out of 10, we're not actually going to be able to do the thing that we're desiring to do, right? Those negative thoughts and those thoughts that's telling us that's not possible or that's not for us, or it needs to be perfect, it needs to be a certain way, those thoughts will begin to take over. And so what I tell my clients all the time is talk back to those thoughts. Don't just let those thoughts punk you. Talk back, right? So talk about it to yourself. The second thing that I recognize that I did before I actually moved abroad, and it was actually a part of, this 10-year journey almost, from 2008 to 2018, was I dreamt of what my life would look like. Now, I recognize that being Black, especially being Black in America, we don't dream a lot, right? And by dream, what I really mean is take a moment to think and allow our desires to wash over us and envision what they'll look like, what they'll feel like, what we will feel like when we're in those spaces, what we will feel, right? So not just internal feelings, but like, am I feeling the wind blow against my skin? Am I feeling the warmth of the sun, right? Like when we are able to imagine ourselves being in the spaces that we actually desire to be, we begin to awaken some things in our brain, right? So if we find ourselves always trying to make things a particular way, or not necessarily moving forward, right? What we call procrastination. One of the things that will help us and support us in doing that is beginning to envision and visualize and dream about that next place. Right before I moved abroad for the, I don't know, third time maybe, but the first extended time, one of the things that I found myself doing, I didn't even know this was a part of the process, but I recognize it now looking back. I would go on Airbnb and I would go and look at different villas in Bali. And Bali in particular, because that was my dream place. I don't know, I kept hearing about Bali. I'd always wanted to go. And so I found myself, the best way to dream and visualize is to start with an actual picture and actual pricing, right? Because I was making up in my mind the cost and the price of different things without actually knowing the cost and the price, right? And the best way to do that and to figure out what the actual cost and price is to go find it. And so if you go on to Airbnb as one example, but if you go on and you begin to look up different apartments and different short-term stay locations, right? And things that are affiliated with where you'd like to be, that will help you begin to imagine and kind of put some details to your dreams. Like I said, living in America, oftentimes, especially as an adult, we've experienced a lot of different traumas. Our dreams have been shut down in so many different ways from so many different people. And so when we reimagine or reawaken our ability to dream, the brain cells begin to open, and the possibilities over time, our ability to imagine possibilities begins to it's almost like our brain comes alive, right? Our ability to imagine and create imaginary situations, right? The more we do it, the stronger we're able to get. And that's what most people call manifesting. We just call I'm planning ahead, right? We usually do it in the opposite, right? We're planning for something negative to happen. This is your ability to plan something positive. So that's the second habit you want to put into place. The third habit, if you want to create a sustainable life abroad, right? Like you actually want to continue moving forward and stop procrastinating. The third habit that you want to put in place is to start making piles of things that you don't use, right? I know for a lot of us, self included, I still find myself getting rid of things, right, that I don't use. We are sold a lot, right? There's a lot of things that we are sold on a daily basis. Commercials in the movies, right? Product placement, somebody has something, our friends, social media, right? All this advertising, there's all these things that we're always being sold. And as a result, right, most times they show us these amazing things and they show us these amazing lives. And if we can't have the life now, many times we'll settle for the thing that they have, right? I'm not exempt. Let me be clear, right? I have been fallen victim to buying things because I deserve it, of buying things now because I can't necessarily have the life that I desire to have, right? And I'm not saying all of those things are useless. What I am saying is that 9 times out of 10, we got a bunch of stuff that we don't need. And so as you begin to dream about this next phase in your life, right, this next step, this next move that you're making, one good thing that will be important for you to do is to begin looking around at your household things, right? So take this thing from the visualization, take it from our brain, take it from our imagination, and let's put it into reality, right? Start looking at some of the things that are around you that can't go. Now, there are some things that we very much so have deep emotional attachments to, right? I myself also have some stuff that I have deep emotional attachments to. I'm not talking about those things, right? What I'm really talking about is beginning to gauge and look around for things that you have not used, clothes you have not worn, items you have not touched, right? And begin making piles, right, of those things. Often, before I moved abroad, I gotta tell you, the first thing that I recognized was there were clothes. As I began to do this exact same process, I'm telling you, there were clothes that I realized that I did not like, right? Had clothing that was majority Black. And I decided that I was not going to wear Black anymore. Now, I did get help, right? I did reach out and look around for someone to support me in this. But I recognized that I needed a fresh outlook on life. And in order for me to do that, I needed a fresh wardrobe, and not just any wardrobe, right? Because I began to think about the wardrobe that I wanted to have in my new space. And for me, that was what's considered a capsule wardrobe. Comment below if you want me to make a video about capsule wardrobes, and I'll tell you all about it. But a capsule wardrobe is basically where everything matches, right? All the tops match, all the pants. And I'm not saying one solid color. I mean, everything goes together so that you can have a few pieces and you basically, from those few pieces, you have a bunch of outfits. And so what I recognized, I started doing some research, and I realized that the outfits that I had currently were not capsule at all, right? Like there was nothing capsule. Everything, I would buy an outfit every time I had a new event. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, because shout out to Ross and Burlington Coat Factory, Old Navy, right? TJ Maxx. Like I would go to these places, and every time I had an event, I would get a new outfit. Well, what happened is I started having all these outfits that I would only wear once, right? They seem to be special occasion outfits, right? And so with these special occasion outfits, I'm like, I'm not wearing any of this stuff unless I have a special occasion or an event to go to. Like on the regular, I'm not wearing this stuff. And so my closet was full of clothes that didn't fit well, clothes that were too small because I was planning on losing weight to get into them, or clothes that I had worn to an event, months ago that I would probably never wear again. Maybe it was a themed event. And so by the time it was all said and done, I had two Black garbage bags full of stuff to give away, right? And I'm just talking about the clothing, right? Just the clothing. But by the time it was time for me to move abroad, I had brown bags, like 8 to 10 bags full of things that I was not using, I was not taking with me. I mean, I gave everything away, but I also had a few bags of stuff that still had receipts that I hadn't even opened. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure if I go back, I'm sure I made a Facebook post about it, but I am almost positive that I was able to recoup about $200 to $300 just because of things that I had bought with the intention, full intention of using, that I had never even opened. So that's the third habit you want to pick up. Start making piles of the things that you're not using. I'm telling you, I know you got some money waiting on you in those piles. So the fourth and final thing, right? As I was thinking about what contributed to my ability to dream, right? What did I add into, or what added into my ability to envision and think about life differently? And the thing that contributed the most to my ability to think about things that I had never seen before in my life, right, was really beginning to think about, or beginning to notice, the people that I followed on social media, right? And so the fourth habit that I'm saying would be helpful for you, if you want to stop procrastinating on your dream of moving abroad, is to start surrounding yourself with those who think like you, or those who think like you would like to think, right? Many times, without recognizing it, people who are doing the things that we desire to be doing, the only reason that we're not doing those things yet is because those people tend to think differently. And we don't really know what they think differently about until we are around them, right? And what I really mean is, how do you add, right, to the changing, or the changing of the guard in your mind? How do you add to the shift that you're wanting to occur? And the way that I have done it, and the way I recommend many of my clients to do it, is to take a look at your social media, right? Plug into, many of us go onto, and I do it too. Again, I am not exempt from any of the things that I'm telling you, okay? Many of us go onto social media and we kind of mindlessly scroll. Like, we're not thinking about it, we're just scrolling through. What I want to encourage you to do, I'm not telling you to shut off your social media. What I am encouraging you to do is to consider, how many people are you following that contribute positively to you going where you would like to go, right? How many people, when they post, they're adding to your feed? Right now, I'm really feeling Instagram. Facebook is cool, but I get tired of listening to people's thoughts. I get tired of scrolling through folks' philosophies. Instagram brings me into somebody's world, I feel like, almost immediate. And if you're not following me, follow me at Coach Tish. But Instagram brings me into folks' worlds and kind of gives me a bird's eye view into what's happening. Now, when I say clue in to what you're feeling, what I'm really talking about is, do you feel inspired? Do you feel judgmental? Do you feel encouraged to move forward or to take the next step, right? If you're tuned into and really being intentional, right? Most of the social media is unintentional. Like, when I first got on Instagram, I was following the same people who was on my Facebook page, the same people who I said was talking about stuff I didn't really care about. Makes no sense, right? When you think about it that way. But when I began to release and to give myself permission to follow folks who inspired, encouraged, and motivated me to make moves in the areas of life that I was looking to make moves in, I've started to notice that those same thoughts that I just mentioned, that people who are doing the things that I would like to be doing, I began to notice that the thoughts they were thinking were now becoming my thoughts, right? Those were thoughts that I was thinking. I began to notice a shift in my thinking. And as a result, that's how I began to create the life that I desire. One of my favorite, one of the places where I met all of I began to really see Black travelers was No Madness Travel Tribe. And I would follow them for years. And that's, even though I didn't have a plan, I didn't know how things would happen, releasing perfectionism and really becoming imposter free, right? Perfectionism is an outlier of the imposter syndrome, for real. I recognized that my journey didn't have to be perfect because I began to see so many different people who had so many different journeys and they were approaching things in so many different ways. And that really freed me from trying to put, you know, all my quote unquote ducks in a row. When I moved to Mexico and at the age of 36, I had just gotten laid off. I had a I had unemployment coming, and I had an idea for how I could use some other additional funds. My community knows what I'm talking about. But for how I could use some additional funds until I found a job. I was fortunate to find a remote job, literally as a coach, which I'd been studying coaching, taking coaching classes, and doing all of these things in order to be a coach. Because in my mind, I couldn't figure out the client and the marketing and the operations. Like running a business is challenging. But I couldn't figure out the easy way. And I'm allergic to high stress life. Like that's just not what I do. Right. So I'm like, what is the lowest stress possible way for me to become a coach and do coaching? And I was like, well, why don't you just work for a coaching company? So that's what I did. Right. I found a coaching company, a place that people have been talking about and bringing up to me. And I applied and I got in. And I not only got in and became a coach, I then turned around and began to recruit other people to come coach alongside me. And I worked at that coaching company for 4 years before I was laid off again. And so if you wanted me to talk about life after a layoff, right, let me know. But I was there until I began to coach for another coaching company, which is where I am now. So all of that to say, we are able to create the life that we desire if we allow ourselves, if we identify different ways that we can begin to shift our thinking, change our mind, in order to ultimately change our life, right? Change your mind and change your life. Change is possible. It can be scary. It can create all kinds of different emotions, right? Different things will show up for us. But I'm telling you, if you do these 4 things that I mentioned to you, you too will find yourself magically, right? Like magic, being in the place that you desire to be simply because you made those shifts, right? So comment below if you found this helpful. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And I can't wait to see you in some of my future videos. I'll see y'all later. Bye.